So, this is the very first episode of this podcast, Fed by Faith. And I've been thinking about it for months now, actually planning it for weeks. And finally, all the equipment came in so that I could set up this podcast. And I scheduled the time in my calendar. I sat down to actually start recording it just now. And in take one, I did the first little bit of what I wanted to go over with you guys. And there are probably no less than 10 people outside my window, all blowing leaves right now. And I don't believe you can still hear it on the mic anymore, but even if you can, this is the perfect segue and perfect theme for what I'm trying to communicate to you today, which is we do not need to wait for circumstances to be perfect in order to start walking in what we know is the right next step or the right thing to do. And in this case specifically, I'm talking about not waiting until New Year's for you to start your fitness journey, start dialing in your nutrition a bit more, and start caring about your body. Or if you've already started, then to at least continue with those things through the holidays. We have 58 days from when I'm recording, 58 days left in 2025. That is a lot of time to either take baby steps in the right direction or take baby steps backwards or big steps backwards in the wrong direction. And so I don't want you to think that for the next 2 months, by doing nothing, that you are going to necessarily stay exactly where you are. You might drift and, in fact, cause yourself to have to start a little bit further back on January 1st. Second, I also don't want you to think that just because you have this list of excuses and because maybe you've never tried it before, that you can't take steps towards becoming the healthiest version of yourself in the Thanksgiving, Christmas holiday season. Thanks for tuning in to Fed by Faith. I'm your host, Madison Andrews, a Christian dietitian and fitness coach. I help women strengthen their bodies and their faith by approaching nutrition, fitness, and body image through a biblical lens. And that's exactly what we do here. Each week, we'll unpack what it looks like to take care of your body without losing sight of Jesus. From building healthy habits without becoming obsessed to growing confident in the woman God created you to be. We chat about it all. So whether you're a Christian already walking with Jesus, or you're just curious about faith and don't know who Jesus is, welcome. You're in the right place. Hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. So that's what this episode is all about. Please, for the love of all things good, do not waste the next 2 months waiting until January 1st to get back on track. You've done that before, you know how it feels, and you don't need to do that again. That's the heart behind this final countdown series. I want to help you become your healthiest self by January 1st instead of just starting then and waiting until then. So each week leading up to January 1st, I'm going to be walking through practical tips and tangible advice with you on how to get you through this holiday season while taking steps in the right direction without sacrificing your favorite things, without feeling like it's a burden on this season, but actually finding out how it can enhance this season and bring you more joy and more peace. So on this episode specifically, I want to dive into some of your excuses and let's bring them out into the light. Let's test them, whether they are truth or lies, and we'll go from there. I know the number one excuse has got to be that the holidays are just too busy. It's not that you don't care, it's just you feel like you don't have time. So you'll start when life slows down. And to that, I want to say life never slows down. And you probably know this too. If you can't do it right now when the timing isn't perfect, then even if you wait until the timing is a little bit more ideal, you might do well during that time. But once things change, circumstances change a little bit, you'll probably end up quitting and having to start over again and have that period of time where you're waiting for things to be perfect again before you start. So having this mindset in the long run is not going to serve you. The second one would be feeling like that there's no point with all the parties and dinners and food coming up. And to that, I want to say there is flexibility. We'll talk about the exact numbers and I'll show you how the math is mathing when I say there is flexibility. And we'll dive into that in a second with the 80-20 method. The next one is that it's cold, it's dark, you don't really feel motivated to go to the gym or exercise. And to that, I would say it is purely an excuse. Do not lie to yourself. Do it unmotivated. Build that discipline, build that character. The next one is you might be traveling a lot. and you can't stay consistent when everything's not necessarily in your control. And to that, I would say something genuinely is better than nothing. And I have a great metaphor for this in a second. This next one goes back to that point of being too busy or not having time. But you might think, I don't have time between work, family, events, everything that I've got on my plate this season. And to that, I would just say you are too busy. You need to take a step back. If you can't prioritize your own health and your body over some of these things that I know you have the flexibility to say no to, then you are absolutely too busy. And I'd imagine that if you're saying you're too busy to eat healthy, to exercise, to take time for yourself, that you probably also don't have time for God, or that if you do, it's this like rushed appointment feeling and not a flourishing relationship. The next one, I don't want to start something if I can't finish. So this is the analogy I was talking about earlier. Think about if you had to get from California to New York on foot. So option A is you wait until January 1st to even start the trek. But option B is you start now, even if you're just walking a couple of miles a day in this metaphor, whether you're slow, you're doing it imperfectly, whatever happens, you will end up way closer to New York by January 1st than if you were to wait and start in 2 months. So that's that same analogy we need to be thinking about when it comes to our health. The next one is I'll just enjoy the holidays now and detox in January. Ooh, to this one, if by enjoying the holidays now you mean binge eating, binge watching Netflix, giving into laziness and complacency, then I would caution you that this isn't how God wants you to enjoy the holidays, period. And if by detox you mean starve yourself, overexercise, drop some weight quickly, then get back to your old lifestyle, I'd caution you that this all or nothing way of living doesn't honor God or your body and can lead to some dangerous things. So if you haven't heard your excuse yet, we've still got lots more excuses coming. I feel like I can really resonate with this next one. It's that maybe you're tired, you're drained emotionally, and physically you're just unmotivated. To that one, I would say taking care of your body better might actually help you with this too. It might help you work through some of that seasonal depression. It might recharge you. There's this misconception that you have to lock in and go full gas, no brakes when it comes to starting to be healthier, but that's so far from the truth. Taking care of yourself feels energizing and restful and loving for yourself. It should not feel like it's an added burden or that it's draining you. That's not to say it's not hard and it doesn't take effort. It absolutely does, but it's the good kind. If you maybe feel like starting again means admitting that you've failed before, let me just say you have failed before. And so have I. And so has every person to ever walk the planet besides Jesus. Honestly, we just need to accept that. We need to humble ourselves. And then we need to ask God for courage and the wisdom to try again and to do it better this time. And this goes for whether that is with your fitness journey, your health journey, or literally anything else in your life too. If you're someone who's afraid of letting yourself down, you will, but you'll learn from that and move forward. You'll fail forward, as they say. The next one is if you associate healthy habits with feelings of guilt, shame, and restriction. My answer to that would be that ignoring this is not solving it. We need to get to the root of that. And the only way that we can do that is to face it head on. Joshua 1:9 says, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." The next one, if you are overwhelmed by all the mixed messages about doing it right, I have a spoiler alert for you, and that is this idea of doing it right only exists because it's a marketing ploy. Nutrition and fitness is not black and white, and anyone who tries to sell you that is doing that. They're selling you something. It is all the shades of gray, and it's entirely person and situation dependent. Honestly, even what's perfectly right for you one day may not even be exactly right for you the very next day. Another excuse I've heard is that you maybe don't want to feel left out when everyone else is having fun. To that, I would say you don't have to. You can enjoy the foods and the drinks without indulging the flesh, which means honoring those hunger and fullness cues, honoring what your body is in the mood for, what it really needs in that moment, And this kind of intuition comes from practice and prayer. Another one is if you feel burnt out from chasing perfection and you're equating health with some kind of striving or hustling, and you just don't want that during the holiday season, let me say, now is actually the perfect time to start because it's low key. It's a soft launch into the new year. There's time to get things wrong and mess up and try again and again. I mean, there always is, but especially right now when there's not this big pressure of like, no, it's the first. We got to do it perfectly and we're going hard, and so is the rest of the world. So that's something that we're going to talk about a lot around here. This idea that perfection does not exist apart from Jesus. So instead of chasing it within ourselves, like I think a lot of diet culture, fitness culture tells us to do, we are going to be chasing after Jesus, the one who is perfect. Another one I hear a lot is that deep down you don't believe you can change, not for long, anyways. I wholeheartedly believe it's because you've only ever tried an all or nothing approach. And maybe that all or nothing approach also had some faulty motives behind it. I recently heard a pastor say something like, I'm not in the business of behavior modification because that's not what Jesus or Christianity is about. It's about a heart change. And then new behaviors flow from that. And I think in the same exact way, we can apply that to how we're stewarding our bodies and how we're living our lives. Let's change your heart and your motives first when it comes to your body, fitness, nutrition, body image, health, etc. And then let's tweak behaviors. Another one is that maybe you fear that you might make health or your body an idol again after healing from some kind of body obsession or disordered eating or whatever it might be. And that's valid. It is wise to be cautious. So let's do it differently this time. Let's take a new approach. Another excuse, and this isn't necessarily an excuse as to why not start on January 1st, but it's sort of this excuse to leave God out of your fitness journey. Maybe you don't see how food and fitness could be spiritual. You think it's only physical. But let me just tell you, in a few simple sentences, biblical principles apply to every area of our lives. Jesus is in every area of our lives, and he cares about our cares, which means he's in this too. This one's good. I feel this one too. If you're waiting for that feeling of motivation instead of acting in faith, and to that, I would say motivation honestly gets you nowhere, at least nowhere for long, because it's out of your control. Whereas discipline is a constant and it's something that you can control. Goes back to when we said that it builds persistence and character. Maybe you're someone who feels behind compared to someone else who's already crushing it. So you just kind of want to hide away for the next couple months and whatever, you'll just start later. So that I would say, I think that comparison is keeping you stuck. I think comparison is a thief, and we know this. I have so much to say about this one specifically that there will absolutely be a podcast episode coming soon about the topic of comparison. But for right now, let me just say comparison is a sin that is rooted in envy and pride. And as believers walking with Jesus, we cannot tolerate the sin hanging around in our lives, and that includes this one of comparison. Maybe you're consumed by what you can't do or what you haven't done yet, or maybe what you set out to do this year, you kind of failed, so you're writing off the whole year. We're not even going to look at that or think about it. Moving on to the next year, I would just say, is that really helpful? To me, that sounds like this feeling of condemnation rather than conviction. We'll talk about that more too. Condemnation is when it's just the enemy's voice over you, keeping you stuck, versus conviction, that's the Lord's voice calling you up and out of something. So if you have feelings that are just discouraging you and keeping you stuck and keeping you not walking in what you know to be to the best of your ability or the right thing, I would caution you that maybe that's the voice of the enemy or the voice of your own flesh and not God's voice. Instead, replace that with what can you do right now? What are you doing in this day? Not what hasn't happened in the past, or what you can't do, or what you don't have control of. The next one is that comfort feels safer than conviction and actually moving to something new. Staying stuck is comfortable. That's the thing with staying stuck. It doesn't take faith to stay comfortable. because you already know the outcomes of the things that you're doing and you've kind of settled there with that, thinking, well, maybe they're not the best, but they're also not the worst. So this is just easier, which leads into the second one, that familiar habits like overeating, skipping workouts, sleeping in are just easier. It's going to take effort, but once these new things become habits, they'll actually start to feel easier too. Another one is that maybe you are numbing with food, busyness, entertainment, instead of actually addressing some kind of deeper hunger within yourself. And to that, I would say, what a perfect time to let God speak and heal those parts of your life or yourself that you're hiding. I think this could absolutely be another excuse, thinking, I'll just take this season to rest and then I'll go hard in the new year. I would challenge you to ask yourself and question, is this really rest, or am I remaining passive and just not wanting to take any action right now? The difference is that rest actually feels restful and it serves a purpose for recharging us to live a purpose-filled life, whereas passivity is maybe more so the feeling of waiting or staying stuck. If you think you'll be more disciplined when life calms down, that is a lie. If you're waiting for another circumstance to be more disciplined, then you're failing the test on discipline as a whole. Because that idea, the whole idea of discipline, is not that it's easy, but that it's painful for a while before it then produces a harvest. And that's exactly what Hebrews 12:11 says. It says, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. Another lie is that it's too late to make progress this year. It is never too late to choose the right thing. The Lord can do a lot with your yes. Another lie you might be telling yourself is that if you can't do it perfectly and it's not worth doing, you absolutely will not ever do it perfectly. 100% guaranteed you will not ever do it perfectly, so are you just never going to do it? Will that always be your excuse? One you might not have vocalized, but is definitely a common belief, is that healthy living means missing out on joy. That is also a lie. It means experiencing more joy, in my opinion, because you actually feel good doing all the things. I've got two more. This one is good. I'll have more willpower after the holidays. No, you'll just have less temptation after the holidays. This last one hits home. It says, I've tried before, it didn't work, so why try again? Honestly, for this one, I'm just working through some possibilities here. Maybe you didn't bring the Lord into it last time. Maybe you didn't walk through it with patience, or maybe you lacked discipline, or maybe you lacked persistence, or maybe you had sinful motives behind all of it that led you astray to doing the wrong things in the wrong ways that felt a lot more like striving and led you to burnout. There are so many maybes here, and unless we were to sit down and really deep dive into a few conversations, it would be tough to get to the root of it. So for this one, if this feels like it resonates with you, I would encourage you to pray and journal about it and get to the root of it. All of this to say, you do not need a new year to start honoring God with your body. You just need a willing heart. Ecclesiastes 11:4, whoever watches the wind will not plant. Whoever looks at the clouds will not reap. We can't just be passive bystanders in something that we actively want to happen in our lives. Another one that's convicting too is James 4:17. If anyone knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them. Maybe this is true about how we're stewarding our bodies as well. So we just brought a lot of excuses out into the light. That way we could really test them for truth versus a lie. And if you didn't necessarily hear your excuse, then I would challenge you to write out what you think your excuses are, write out the things that are stopping you, and hold that up to the Word of God and ask God, are these rooted in truth, or are these lies I'm telling myself that are keeping me stuck? So that is your practical application from this episode. I did also want to leave you with something very practical. So like I said in the beginning of the episode, we have about, let's call it 60 days. We have about 60 days left of 2025, which means if you're eating 3 meals a day, that's 180 meals. And if you follow that 80-20 principle, which means 80% is nourishment, discipline, think whole foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, all the things. And then 20% is that flexibility and joy, like your indulgent foods, your dinner parties, going out, etc. If we follow the 80-20 principle for our 180 meals left, that means there are 36 of those meals that fall into the 20% category. When you think about it, that's like having one of those flexible meals every other day for the rest of the year. You can't tell me that that's not sustainable and that that's not flexible enough. This concept here that we're talking about becoming your healthiest self before January 1st, is about stewardship. It is not about perfection. And the second we make it about perfection, we're already failing because we know we're not perfect. 1 Corinthians 10:31 says, "So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do it for the glory of God." Stewardship glorifies God. You can also apply this 80-20 principle to other healthy habits too, and think about it more on the macro scale. Like 80% of your days, you have excellent habits, move your body, etc. And then 20% are more flexible. If you've never heard that 80-20 principle idea before, I hope that's encouraging to you. And if you have, I hope that that's a reminder to you that we do not need to be 100% or 90%. Honestly, even if it's more 75-25, even if it's 50-50 and you're used to doing 0%, that is still so much better than just staying stuck and thinking that you can't do anything if you can't do it perfectly. 3 very tangible tips to go along with that is 1, start today. You do not need a diet to start. You don't need some kind of perfect plan to start. You just need to understand basic nutrition principles. Make half your plate colorful. This just means fruits and vegetables. Make another fourth of your plate some kind of lean protein, like chicken, leaner cuts of beef if you can, ground turkey, eggs, egg whites, etc. Make a fourth of your plates carbohydrates. So this is like ideally whole grains, but it could just be other carbs too. If that's what you've got, then that's what you're working with. If you're new to these concepts, might require just a little bit of research on Google just to see, I don't know what this food is. Is it a protein? Is it a carb? Does this count as my fruit and vegetable? You can look that up so easily. Do not let that be your excuse. Second tip is that I want to warn you that 20% that we were talking about of the 80-20 does not equal binge eating. Saying yes to the cinnamon rolls and the Christmas cookies is a great thing, but I don't want you to do it from a place of indulgence or feeling like if I don't have it now, all of it now, then I can't have it ever again. You have to approach these kinds of foods from a sense of freedom and from a sense of autonomy, in that you get to decide when you have it, how much you have it, and that you get to steward that well in a way that honors your body and honors God. And the way you can do this is ask yourself questions before, during, after eating to determine and honor those hunger and fullness levels. We'll dive into that a whole lot more, I'm sure. If you go to the link in my bio on Instagram, I have a free resource there that will give you 16 questions to ask yourself to help guide that eating. One last thing on this note, where I see this going wrong, this 20%, is to think that your 20% being that meal, like I said 36 meals, not 36 days. So 36 meals, one meal going into the more indulgent side of things doesn't have to spill out into the whole day. Just because you had an indulgent brunch doesn't mean that you just throw in the towel on the rest of the day and have 2 more indulgent meals that day. You don't need to do that. You just steer right back. You get back to half your plate color, fourth of it protein, and a fourth of it carbs. So we've talked about excuses. We've talked about a couple of tips when it comes to nutrition and applying that with an 80-20 principle. Lastly, I want to leave you with some encouragement around the fitness aspect of it as well. Fitness does not mean you need to be the fastest, the strongest, the most toned. If you are someone who does not work out at all right now, then this first step might just mean going out for a walk a few times a week. Just doing more than you're already doing if you're doing nothing. If you're already doing something, maybe leaning into that a little bit more and finding something that challenges you and excites you. That would be a great place to start. For me personally, if it's a busy season and I know I'm not going to be able to get my usual workouts in, I'll just try to add more activity in during the day, like going on a walk before or after work, taking breaks from sitting all day. Wherever you are, just take the next best step that you know is headed in the right direction and roll with that. If you're big into journaling, your question for the week could be, what does honoring God with my health look like for me in this season? Write it all out, flesh it out, make a plan if you want to, and just bring the Lord into it. So If you are ready to embark on this journey now in 2025 and not wait until 2026, subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you feel so inclined, please leave a 5-star review. We're a new podcast and would absolutely love to hear your feedback. These next 8 weeks, they are not about restriction. They are about stewardship. So let's finish this year honoring God and your body. Stay tuned for next week's episode.